Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of the West Coast, and good evening for those of you coming from Israel, Turkey, and Greece. And a belated Purim Alegre to you all. I hope everyone had a wonderful Purim, and celebrating it Sephardic style, wherever you might be, with some orejas de Haman's ears, as we make, as well as listening to your local Megillah reading and having a wonderful time. For those who don't know me, my name is Ethan Marcus. I'm the managing director of the Sephardic Jewish Brotherhood of America, the national umbrella organization for the Ladino-speaking Sephardic community of the United States. And we're so excited to have you here for part 2 of our wonderful series, the Sepharadim of Romania, with Penina Zilberman. Just a reminder, this program is through our wonderful Sephardic Digital Academy, an online database resource of classes on all types of things Sephardic, whether it be Sephardic history, culture, Ladino language, Sephardic cooking, Torah perspectives, halacha, and so much more. If you haven't seen any of our previous programs in the past, you can check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sephardic Brotherhood, or go to our website, sephardicbrotherhood.com/Sephardic Digital Academy. Check up our roster coming up soon for the spring. Without further ado, I'll introduce our guest speaker, part 2 already, with Penina, who is an expert on Romanian Jewry, herself with heritage from Romania, born and raised in Israel, but is also a member of the Jewish community of Romania today, and is an active advocate and also runs tourist programs through the Tarbut Foundation, which you can speak about more in this program. Without further ado, I'll hand over the floor to our amazing friend, Penina, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Share screen. Hello, everybody. Okay, 1 minute. Great. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. I'm happy to be here on the second part of our series. And once again, I want to thank for being invited. It's really a great honor for me to take part in your series. And without further ado, I will start. And I hope, as Ethan said, you all had a lovely Purim, and all the ladies among us had a good Women's Day yesterday, and try to make it every day. It shouldn't be only once a year. Okay, there were 2 questions at the end of the session last time, and I said I will look into it. One of them was about the Ladino language, which is part of the presentation today. And the other question was how many Sephardim Jews were killed, were died during the Holocaust period. So the second question I will deal either today or next time. But it's in my question file. So without further ado, I would like to start with a brief recap for those who joined us today. Very, very short. So the Jewish Sepharadim community arrived to Romania when the Ottoman Empire conquered Romania in the mid-16th century. The Sultan felt their presence to be extremely important for the development of the local economy. The Ottoman Empire was among the countries who the Jews immigrated following the expulsion of 1492 from Spain and partly from Portugal. Now, the Romanians fought with the Russians in the Russo-Turkish War for 1 year during 1877 to 1878, and by this, the Romanians gained freedom from the Turkish Empire. And in 1881, Romania became a kingdom. Now, the immediate question that arises now is, what are the Jews going to do now? Because they don't have like a protection, the Ottoman Empire. Well, you know, Jews know how to find their ways to become useful. And they were extremely useful for the kings and nobles They were handling their taxes, and they kept the economy growing. And so the kings and the nobles were giving them extra protection and also rights. In a way, I chose to call this period the Sephardic Romanian Golden Age, because from that moment, they continued to grow and become a real large community in a small sense, but very developed. Once under the ruling of the Romanian kingdom, and again, please note that they did not have officially any rights, their rights were provided by their personal efficiency and how important they were for the kingdom state. And of course, you know that they were extremely important. The Jewish community was before already recognized as an entity starting in 1730 during the Ottoman Empire. And the community continued to develop even faster once Romania was independent of the Ottoman Empire until World War II. That's when basically it stopped. At the time, the highest level that they were 10,000 out of 850,000 Jews were in Romania on the eve of the beginning of Second World War. Now, this is a map of Romania, as you can see, very detailed. And there are two things I want to bring to your attention. Where did the Spanish Jewry located itself? So definitely in Bucharest, which was already the capital. The next city was Craiova, and in Craiova was even a synagogue that demolished by nature in 1977 when there was a very strong earthquake in Romania. So the synagogue in Craiova, the Spanish one, just, you know, I guess they were not building with very good cement or bricks or whatever. And I was told that the ceremonial objects from the Spanish one was taken, saved after the earthquake, and given to the Ashkenazi one that is still there. I've never visited Craiova, so I can't tell you, but I did meet over the phone and over the Zoom the president, which is a descendant of a Spanish family. His last name is Shabtai, which is definitely a Spanish, a Sephardic last name. And also Shabtai goes back to Izmir. Shabtai Tzvi was a false prophet that promised to the Jews in Izmir that the Messiah is coming, and now we pack fast and we go to Israel. But nothing really happened, and that's why we say that Shabtai Tzvi was a false prophet. So we said they were in Bucharest, in Craiova, in Turnul Severin. Now, as you notice, very close to the southern border, which was all the area where the Ottomans were ruling. On this side, Tulcea, which is on the shores of the Danube River. Galatz, the same thing. Brăila, the same thing on the shores of the Delta Danube. And the last city that they were was Iași. Although it's up north here, the reason was because Yash represented the exit to Asia for trade because most of the Sephardic Jews were merchants. Okay, now 850,000 Jews that lived in Romania before the war. Let me show you where they were mostly living. So again, I usually divide Romania this time into 4 quarters. So we have the southern eastern one, including Bucharest. We have now here, all this area is called Northern Transylvania, very full with Jews, especially here in the north, where my mother's family comes, Sighetu Marmaț, which was the city of the late Elie Wiesel. Very, very tense here with Jews, about close to 200,000. And the other area was this, that's called Bukovina. And just as a side, the people from this area were deported to Transnistria in Ukraine today. And the people from northern Transylvania were deported to Auschwitz. Okay? So we will leave that part for now. So in this mass big number of 850,000 Jews, there are only 10,000 of Sephardic origin. Now, historically, Jewish people, when they come to a new country, they right away do 3 things. They build a synagogue, a mikveh, and a school. And around this, they create their Jewish life. So this is what it's called. Here you can see it much nicer. You can see here what was called the Grand Spanish Temple. They didn't call synagogue, temple. Also was called Kahal Grand Temple. Now, the word Kahal in Hebrew means congregation, audience. And in Hebrew, we say Bet Knesset. Bet Knesset means house of congregants. This synagogue was located in a neighborhood, middle class and upper class in Bucharest, that was called Bucharest. And it was at number 12 Negru Voda Street. It was built in 1818, okay? The word is that it was the most beautiful architecturally outside as much as inside of all the rest of the synagogues. Now, who were the rest of the synagogues? Of the Ashkenazim. Now, in January 1941, between the 21st and the 23rd, was a pogrom in Bucharest. You see, Bucharest was not affected by the Holocaust. However, it was affected terribly by this unfortunate pogrom. Took place by the group that was called the Iron Guard. It was a far-right group and was also called in Romanian Legionars. And what they did, I'm sorry that I have to disappoint you. This is the picture that here is the Aron HaKodesh, the inside, and this is once it was destroyed. They literally burned down the synagogue. Everything burned. Nothing was being able to be saved. The synagogue was not rebuilt only after the end of Second World War, meaning, let's say, sometime in late 1945, after liberation and so on. Although the communists were already wandering in Bucharest and looking to establish themselves. But it was rebuilt, and another disaster happened. This time, Ceausescu, the dictator that ruled Romania from 1965 till late December 1989, when the revolution happened, he decided in 1985, only 4 years before the revolution, but nobody really knew what's going to happen. He decided that he badly needs that area of the city to develop it into apartments. And he wanted to, of course, demolish the synagogue. Now, of course, the Jewish community, Sepharadim and non-Sepharadim, were against it. And everybody tried very, very hard that nothing should happen. And there were lots of promises. And I found in the archives of JTA, the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, a whole document stating who was in contact with them, meaning with the Romanian government, the American government, and the ambassador were willing to give in either goods or money or something to appease him and not to go ahead with this project. But I must say that he did this across Romania. In Sighet, the town of my mother, as I told you, in Elie Wiesel, the late Elie Wiesel, today's synagogue is not really an Orthodox, it wasn't an Orthodox synagogue, but across the street was an Orthodox synagogue with a Bet Midrash and so on. The message came from the government in Bucharest, the officials, that that synagogue has to be demolished. What do you think it's across the street of the synagogue today? A high-rise building of 10 floors. And that synagogue was also taken off the ground. Now, just to show you how the American government tried so hard to stop this, even President Reagan at the time tried extremely hard. We have B'nai B'rith, we have Anti-Defamation League, anyone, Israel, JDC, anyone who could just try and try. But unfortunately, nothing helped. And in July 21st, to be exact, 1986, the bulldozers came and knocked down this beauty. So this is what really happened to the most beautiful Sephardic synagogue in Bucharest. And as I said, today there are high-rise buildings there. But let's look at something else. You know, in North America, we buy tickets for high holidays, and this way we can come in for the services, members or non-members. This is a ticket that entitles, and in this case was Mr. Semo, entitled him to come into the synagogue all year round. And here it says in Romanian that he must show this ticket in order to come in. This one is a program of the Chazan, Alberto. There was an evening of Chazanut. I keep emphasizing that this community of Jewish Sepharadim in Romania emphasized highly the culture. Yes, religion too, but also Jewish culture. So I thought that's a nice thing to show, especially since it went through so many disasters. Now, this synagogue is the small one, the small temple that is located, it's not today anymore, okay, but was located where the business in the old town of Bucharest was going on. And that's where all the merchants and the businessmen and the bankers and these industrialists would spend their time. Now, this is a guess based on other countries where there was a small synagogue in such a locality. You see, many people would come for a yortzeit to say Kaddish, or during the day, or let's say they wanted to pray Mincha in the afternoon. So they wouldn't go, you know, to the general large synagogue, but they will use this smaller one close to their work. So this is not available either to see, only from the very few pictures. Now, I said that we always start with a synagogue and a school and a mikveh, but we also take care of the needy. So this is the building of the Jewish community. This is an old folks' home. And this building was a medical center for the needy. So we always take care of all parts of the community. And here we have Chesed Ve'emet, and it's of Chevre Kadishe, which takes care of all the issues that deal with a loved one that has passed away. Okay, I'll stay here. And that's when I want to say a few words about the Ladino language. Ladino is known as a language that Spanish Jews used to speak among themselves. And so they did in Romania. They spoke in the home with their families. And they spoke in their community when they went to various programs, prayers among themselves. They spoke also Ladino. However, with their business colleagues, they would speak Romanian. So they knew both languages and they used it in two different scenarios. The Ashkenazim were doing the same thing. They would speak Yiddish, which you could say, you know, it's parallel to like Ladino, and they would speak Romanian to their colleagues or anybody in the business world, or with the officials, or if they have to go to an office in the city hall, or anything that was, or with anyone that wasn't Jewish. Ladino language is from the 14th and 15th century, was spoken in Spain with additional Hebrew and other local words where they lived after the expulsion. Now, Ladino has two basic dialects. One is the Eastern one from the Castiliani Spanish language and is spoken in Turkey and Rhodes Island. And the other one is the Western one is kept the Northern Spanish and Portugal language dialects. And that was spoken in Romania, Greece, Bosnia, Serbia, and Macedonia. Now, many of the old and modern Ladino vocabulary disappeared due to the local influence where the Spanish Jews lived Hebrew and other local influences affected the language. At the same time, Hebrew words also were affected by the Ladino. And I have 4 small examples. The word pita, okay, pita, that kind of a bread, flat bread, is a Greek word that entered the Ladino language. Now, those that are listening to the session and speak Ladino, you must have heard the word demicolo. Demicolo. Maybe like this we have to pronounce. I don't speak Ladino, which means something not good. Now, many times, if you are in the surrounding of Bulgarians or Greek people or Spanish peoples in Israel, they will use this word, meaning it's not good. There is another word we use in Hebrew, debil, which means, unfortunately, somebody not very wise. This comes from the Spanish word. And the last one is a nice one. It's an endearing thing. In Hebrew, we say, enaim sheli, when we love someone, when we endear someone, my eyes. And I discovered that in Ladino, we say, mi ojos, or ojos de mi cara. So that's what happens with languages. You know, by the way, in the Romanian language, we also have many words that come from the Turkish language, and I'm going to show you that too. Welcome back to Mr. Bejanaro. That was my Ladino poster. Here are the words that I'm going to tell you that are from Romania, that are in Romanian and Turkish. For example, socks, ciorap, soup, we say ciorbă, the same. Cupboard, dulap, slippers, papuch, and so on and so forth. You know, I have here different words that I'll just give you one more. A bag, jante. So all these words are today Romanian words that we use in the regular everyday conversations, but they are not Romanian words. They are Turkish words. And the same thing is with the food, but we'll leave the food alone now. Okay, let's go back now to the school. The principal of the school was Chaim Bejerano, and the school was a Alliance school. Alliance started in France. It was a school at the beginning only for boys. Later on, they opened it for girls. In the picture here, except of a few ladies here, which I believe are the teachers, I just saw boys. So this is right at the beginning. You know, boys always had the priority to be taught, to learn for their future, where females were not always given that opportunity, unless the family felt extremely, for whatever reason, so they would send. In Romania, there wasn't really a girls' school, but it used to be pension. Pension used to be a school for young women that will, in a way, train them to be very educated culturally, languages, to know how to manage a house, and so on, but the teachers were nuns, and the school would be in a monastery. My grandmother, my late grandmother, went through a school like this, and therefore I have to thank her that everything I know about Romania, the language, the culture, is really thanks to her, because she was extremely into all these subjects. She didn't know how to cook, but she used to know how to manage a cook and a cleaner and all these professionals that would live with them. So this was the School for Boys, Bejanaro. Now he has here some medals, and that is because he fought in the First World War, okay? The Jews fought in the First World War for Romania, even though they were not fully given all the rights. My grandfather, who came from Siget, he also fought in the First World War. He was stationed in Italy, and he didn't have any rights. So that's how the Jews still felt extremely loyal for their countries. This we saw, this we saw. Here is something interesting about last names. You see, I do a lot of genealogy for people to try to find their ancestors. And many times, if I right away ask, what was the last name, the first last name that they know? And according to that, I can figure out lots of things. I'll just tell you, my latest client person is a young woman, Romanian by birth, lives in Toronto, Canada, and she writes to me that the last name of her grandmother is Solomon, but the family practices Christianity, and she doesn't know too much, but she feels she wants to find out more. Even before she gave me any information more, I told her that she comes from a Jewish Sephardic family in Bucharest. And turns out that I was right, with roots from Bulgaria. They came from Bulgaria to Bucharest and settled, but they didn't practice Judaism. Now today she sent me the tombstone, and it says black and white, Familia Solomon, the family Solomon, but there is a cross on the tombstone. So you see the paradox here? All right, let's look at a few last names. So they include names, Aftakion, Alkalai, Alfandri, Behar, Granyani, Medina, Mitani, Nachmias. Nachmias is Greek, I know, because I met a few people there. Papo and Semo. These are representing Spain, Italy, Greece, Turkey, and the Arabic countries. Now, don't be surprised that we have here the Arab countries, because if we recall the Jewish Sepharadim when they lived in Spain, before the Spanish queen came on to reign, there were a lot of Muslims. So they were somehow affected. It always happens that the minority is affected by the larger group, and Jews were always a minority wherever we live. Unfortunately, even in our own country, we might be one day. Okay, now I promised you, one more thing about, the synagogue. Usually in the synagogue, we have a rabbi, right? In the Ashkenazi. But in the Sephardic synagogue, the rabbi is called Chacham. Chacham means a wise man. We also say that our rabbis are very wise and so on, but to call your rabbi Chacham ben Gerano really, really empowers and you understand his wisdom. Now, why is he so wise? He's experienced and he can assist his members with challenges in life, with family issues and so on. So he is a Chacham. Now, what happened in Bucharest at this synagogue vis-a-vis Chachamim, vis-a-vis rabbis? The first one, guess what? His last name was Papo. And it was in 1819, the first rabbi. The longest one that stayed was from 1878 till 1910. His name was Chaim Moshe Bechor Bejerano. Now, he was related to the principal of the school, of course. You know that in those days, families were very large. So that's why there were lots of Bejeranos and Papo and Levi and so on. During the years 1921 to 1930, there was no Chacham. There was only a Chazan. Okay? Now, there was another group of leaders in the community, and they were part of the Chevre Kadishe, and in Hebrew or in Spanish, it's called Parnasim. A Parnas is a leader who serves his only men, of course, his community. And the Chevre Kadishe used to have these individuals. And again, it started in 1812. And the last one was in 1912. You can see by this kind of a summary about the Chacham and the Parnasim in Chevre Kadishe that the major life of that community was the span of 1812 to 1912. There was life after 1912, but not so intense. That's why I called those 100 years as the Romanian Golden Age. All right, so let's go now further. So our first individual that I'm going to highlight is Jacques Menachem Elias. This gentleman was born in 1844 in Bucharest. He did die in 1923, also in Bucharest, but he was buried in Vienna. Let me say something in general about these personalities that I'm going to discuss about in order for you to understand something about the Romanian culture in general. Bucharest was considered the Paris of the East. The French language was spoken as a second language after Romanian, and in many circles, especially in the artsy world, it was the main language. And everybody had this wish that one day they'll go to Paris for real, to live there, to study there, to go for a trip. Paris looked like the place to aim to go. Therefore, many of the, that's what comes up, many of the Sephardic community ended up actually in Austria too. So they are in the Jewish, there is no really Jewish cemetery in Vienna. There is the central one out of about 50 of them. And the central one has a specific section for Jewish, for a special Jewish section. And in there is also Elias and some other members of the Sephardi community. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this gentleman. He was single. He never married and didn't have children. He lived a very simple life, even though we can consider him in our language today, multi-millionaire. He, number one, owned a sugar factory in Romania. He also had 9 buildings in Vienna, Berlin, Rome, and Paris. He owned 2 hotels in Bucharest. One is still with the same name, and there is a plaque outside when you go to Bucharest with his name there. One of them is the Continental. He also owned mercury mines, factories. He had shares in New York, Brussels, London, Prague, Belgrade, Vienna, Berlin. And he also, with all this money, was a great philanthropist, of course. Now, he didn't have any rights, but guess who gave him rights? King Carol I. And why did he give him rights? Because he was his advisor. Okay, so you understand the relationship. I said to you that he did not have his own family. He died on May 14, 1923 in Bucharest, and almost the whole government came to his funeral. He did have a funeral in Bucharest, and then they took the coffin to Vienna. Now, even though he died in 1923, in 1914, he wrote his will. And what did he ask there? He, first of all, empowered the Romanian Academy to take care of his inheritance. And nobody from his family, from his extended family, like sisters and brothers, can benefit. He wanted all his wealth to go to the country, to the city, and you will see soon how did that happen. They created a foundation for him, and the first thing that he asked was to create a hospital with at least 100 beds, regardless of your religion, your faith, or who you are, to be accepted, and services for free. So that was one thing he really wanted, which did happen. It was built in 1938. We are going to see it. Okay, this is his announcement of his passing. This announcement is in German. And just from a genealogical point of view, over here, it says all the names of the rest of his family. Now, last week I said that the people were intermarrying of the same group of families in the Sephardi community. So here we see that there is a relationship between Elias and Hillel, the two families. Maybe the mother last name was Hillel, don't know. This is mausoleum in Vienna. Look how he has here engraved his name. But here is the matzeva. Here is the tombstone. And I took a picture on this side. Everything is in Hebrew except of his Abraham Menachem Elias. Now, he was, I think, 83 when he passed away. I'm sure many of you have seen old tombstones, and the way it's done, if the person is very, what should we say, important, honorable, and so on, they used to do using the first letter of his name. So here it says Abraham Eliyahu, and they start Aleph, Ish, etc., etc. Bet, Baal Ma'asim Hakol Asa Yafeh. He did great deeds for the community and so on. So it's interesting that he requested to have his tombstone aside from the mausoleum. You can see the architecture, which is very Moorish in those days, you know, as it is Spanish. Most of his family is buried there. Elias is one of the most important examples, as I said, of the Moorish Renaissance architecture in Vienna. And it was designed, now look, he was still alive, 1908 till 1911, at the same time almost as he wrote his will. And the name of the architect doesn't sound to me Sepharadim, Stefan Fayans. Stefan, I think he was Romanian. So this was Eliyahu Elias, a very important person. And here I'm going to show you the hospital. This is an aerial view of the hospital. It's huge. Today it has 200 beds, more, double than he wanted. It's very modern and one of the most successful places, you know, if you're looking for some medical care, very modern. And so people are coming here, but they do pay today, okay? This is the logo, and I want to translate it. It's the Academia Romana, the Romanian Academy, Spitalul Universitate de Urgență Elias. The urgency, the hospital connected to the university, but it's urgency. In other words, urgency cases. But it's not just that, you know, it's open to whoever can, or his doctor is there, you know, different situations. Here is another example of another style of a mausoleum, and she is a relative of his, Garcia Veneziala Elias. GEB in German is a short form Geborn. She was born with the last name of Hillel. So remember, I told you that the two families were connected. Now, this is the only woman I found in pictures of Spanish women, and her name is Helena, and she was part of the Hillel, Manash, and Farahi, which were always very Sephardic last names. Now, what's important about her to see here? Beautiful jewelry, very nice hairstyle, beautiful hand embroidery, I believe, of her blouse or top or part of her dress. Unfortunately, they just, the data shows where she was born. The year she was born, not where. and they don't know where she passed away either. No guesses, who knows? Okay, now we are going to come into the business world. Now, this is a store of, here it says, books, school books for junior and secondary schools, and a store for books and writing tools or equipment, because in those days there was great emphasis on the kind of pen you have, or pencil, with ink, without ink, and so on. So it was called La Libreria Universale Alcalay and Company. And they were on Calia Victory, at the corner called Boulevardo Elisabetta. Now, when you go today to Calia Victory, it's something like Fifth Avenue in New York, if you want. I'm not talking about New York today. I'm talking about New York, you know, maybe 30 years ago. I haven't been in New York since 2019, just before Corona. So I hear it's a bit different. And you can see that the store is on a full block, okay? And I recall my father telling me that just before the school started, the school year in September started, he would come here and buy all his supplies. So it was a very important, well-known, not only bookstore, but also for school equipment. So that belonged to to the family of Alcalay. Another one here, this is the family of Asher, had a warehouse of umbrellas. Now I want you to maybe laugh a little bit. The largest warehouse of summer umbrellas and umbrellas for the sun and umbrellas for the rain. That's how the ad goes. And this was that. Now here, I was quite taken that in that time, they had dry cleaning. This is the family of Aftalion, and they had, well, they claim that it's not dry cleaning the way we give our things. Here, by the words, it means it's a factory for dry cleaning. But I was very impressed that it was. There is Aftalion. He also had cleaning carpets. So this is an ad for cleaning carpets. Within 3 days, you'll have it ready. Now this one, the reason why I chose, it's a textile store. And we learn that the Farahi family had the business with Grunfeld. Now, Grunfeld is an Ashkenazi name. It's a German, Austrian name. So either they intermarried and that's why they had the store, or simply one of them had a business partner of the other group of people in the Jewish community. So this was a textile, and they say here the types of materials that they sell, and they have, and everything comes from abroad. You know, that was important. This one is just a collection of 2 pages of various ads for various businesses. Here is ladies' clothes made ready, and so on. You can see again Alcalay and the Asher. All right, this individual, Mr. Halfon, who served here in the army in the First World War. Here he is with his wife. And this is a postcard that he sent to his son in Bucharest during First World War. Now, who was Solomon Shlomo Halfon? He was a banker. He supported the 1848 revolution that took place in Romania. That was a revolution that I dealt with that last week, where the citizens of Romania wanted better rights for themselves, social and economic. I'm not speaking about Jews. I'm speaking about the Romanians themselves. And Mr. Halfon, as a banker, supported that revolution. It wasn't that he was against the kingdom. He was for better the lives of the total citizens. So this was Mr. Halfon. And I hope we are okay with the time, sort of. There is something that I really want to share with you. So when I started my research about this whole topic of Jewish Sepharadim in Romania, I came across of this address, it's hard to say it even in Romania, Soshawa Kiselev 55 to 57. Now, when you come from the airport into the city, you come on this road. And I recall this house. So I did my first presentation on this topic back in December. So I said, next time I go to Bucharest, I'm going to stop the taxi driver and take pictures. And so I did in February. And here you see this number is still there, 55. Just that you see the two houses. This is refurbished. It's exactly the same thing. Nothing has been changed. And I simply just liked it. And today it's rented by this company, something Crest, Wave Crest is rented, and they've restored it. I couldn't go inside. They wouldn't have let me. There is a guard, but I told the guard that I really need to have a picture. So he was nice and let me in to see. Now, I want to conclude with Nikolai Kajal. Nikolai Kajal was born in Bucharest in 1919 and passed away in 2004. He was of Sephardic origin, has quite an unusual last name, but everybody knows that he was of Sephardic origin. His father was a doctor. He was also a doctor. He specialized in virology, viruses, of course, and he was a member of the British Royal Society of Medicine. For a while, he was one of the experts for World Health Organization, and so on and so forth. He continued to develop and grow in the non-Jewish community, but he was Jewish. He had 2 children, and he also became a member of the parliament and fought for the rights of the war criminals. There were war criminals in Romania. Brackets, still the government names streets after those individuals, and that's a constant fight in Romania today. And in the year 1999, he became the president of the Jewish Federation until he passed away. His daughter, I know, works for the Minister of Culture. And for many, many years, she was the only woman at the Jewish Federation of Romania. And she wasn't elected. Her father requested that she should continue his work. You see, in Romania, the society, it doesn't matter if you're Jewish or non-Jewish, is very much male society. Today, it's the last 10 years or so, it's been a little bit of change and some women have higher positions, but otherwise, no. So he was one of the presidents of the Jewish Federation. Now, next week, we are going to talk about the present memory of the Sepharadim community. And this picture is a book cover of a book that was written about the Sephardi community that I used some information from it. So I want to wish all of you a Shabbat Shalom. I want you to have a wonderful weekend. And now if there are any questions, and Ethan, is there any time? Ethan? What happened? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I don't know. What's happening? Mark, not Mark, sorry, Ethan. Hello?
Keep talking to someone.
Oh, we're listening to a little boy. What's happening? I don't know. Chat. I was shared. Yash. Yaakov, it's okay. Where is he? I really would like we hear you. Yaakov says, I hear you. Gloria, I can hear you fine. Okay, there's Chisinau was part of Romania. Yes, it was. Today, it's part of Ukraine. Many of the Jews from Chisinau were deported to Transnistria, if that is something that helps. Yash is the same as Yash. Yes, it's a different spelling, but the right spelling is I-A-S-I. And somebody heard here about Bessarabia. Bessarabia was a region that today is what it's called Moldova region, right at the border of Romania, the eastern border. There is a piece of land, the region that's called today Moldova. As a matter of fact, as of yesterday, the official language in Moldova has been Romanian and not any longer Russian. But that area was called Basarabia. My grandfather was born in Chisinau, Romania. Could he have been Sephardic? Very, very small chances. There wasn't a region that was populated by Sephardim. I'm sorry. Who else? Okay, there is one more question at the end. Was there a Sephardi community in Chisinau? Not to my knowledge, but I can find out and get back next week. Okay, I don't know what happened to Ethan. Anybody else has any other questions? Because I can answer you. Let me tell you a story. Hopefully Ethan comes. Let me tell you a story about the pogrom. My grandparents on my father's side lived in Bucharest. That's where my father was born. My father was born in Bucharest, my mother in Sighet. So Grandpa Yaakov was a tailor, and he was one of the tailors of the king. So he was well connected. They were not religious. Grandma and Grandpa would go maybe 3 times to the synagogue in Bucharest, like Rosh Hashanah, Pesach, Yom Kippur, something like this. And comes the chief of police. Let's say the pogrom was on the 21st. It started a week before. And he comes to my father and he says to him, Yanku, I don't know the exact date, but it's going to be some trouble for the Jews. Start collecting some food, water. I will send somebody to come and let you know the exact dates. And when you have the date, please go in the basement and stay there. I gave instructions not to break the windows, not to get in the house by force, but who knows? Okay, Grandpa told Grandma. They started to do some things. They had 2 sons. One of them was my father. And a couple days later comes an officer and says to Grandpa, 21st, you go downstairs and stay there until somebody will come, either to take you or you hear that there are no more shooting and nothing outside. They went in and they stayed for 4 days there. And when they came out, it's really a miracle. The house was not touched, like it says, you know, in the story of Passover, that it passed over the house. So that's how they passed over their house, not touched it. But what they saw outside was not really a pleasant sight. The right wing that did this pogrom was very cruel. I don't like to talk about it, but I'm just telling you that this what happened to my family because they were well connected, because they were assimilated. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is that these things happen, meaning to be saved. They were actually saved because we don't know what could have happened to them if they wouldn't have had the heads up what can happen. Okay, probably Ethan had to be somewhere. So I'm going to wish everybody, as I said, a Shabbat Shalom and have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so very much. Bye-bye. Shalom. I don't even know how to get this thing going. Debbie, is that you? Good, thank you for being here. What happened? I don't know. I can't end it. What happened, Zoom meeting? Let's see. Shut